Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet and of YouTube. Welcome to Jibber. I am your host, as always, Skajarmas, otherwise known as Tone Shift. With me today, we have a pretty full house, one more person than usual. This is largely because we have a new guy joining us, who I will introduce right now. Welcoming to the stage, Soviet Starfish.
Hello. I have returned from Motherland.
Yes. Next up, we have the author of the Change series, co-author on many idiocy verse stories, and just all in all kind of an amazingly British friend, Tom117Z.
Well, I'm eating an ice cream, so I'll be muted for a while.
Okay. Next up, sitting just across from him and being delightfully British as well, we have Darkness.
Good to be back, everyone.
Sitting on top of the head of the first British man I mentioned, we have Small Tux.
Hello there.
I asked you to help me get him off ages ago. You still haven't said help.
Do something about it.
Next up, just kind of standing in the background, staring deep into your soul, we have Paladin.
Here, somewhat, maybe.
Yep. That's here. And then, standing off to one side, just kind of staring in awe at the small tux on Tom's head, we have Blank Page.
Heyo.
Have I missed anyone?
No, I think that about sums up the cast for today.
I thought you were gonna miss me. I would have been a little sad. Until like I saw another panel. Oh my goodness.
What?
Oh no. Oh no.
Hold up. What?
I shouldn't talk about this while we're doing this because like I know the audience will be able to see it, but I've been like looking at the comics for the Power Ponies and oh my goodness.
Oh dear God.
I don't know where they actually made proper Power Ponies comics, but okay.
You look at the cover of Jibber Jabber. It looks like Soviet's like staring at me like, I despise you so much.
Well, I like to think of it glaring at both you and Malafor in just pure disgust and disappointment.
Man, I thought you were just like upset because you're hungry because you haven't eaten anything. You feel
Eat a Snickers.
Have a Snickers! Turn into Patrick! What? He's a starfish.
I mean, that is true.
You're not you
I'll get into the story of why I call my improv, though.
Yeah.
Mike, is your arms like a starfish?
No.
Well, I can't wait till we're at improv. Right now, we do have topics to go to, but first of all, how's everyone's week been?
Tiring.
oh
I have
hectic
to
as
call
it
it.
is.
The 9 weeks is up, finally. I survived.
Woohoo.
I get Fallout 76 on Tuesday, so I'm happy.
Oh, good. I called out of work sick today because I woke up and I didn't want to deal with people.
And yet you're here on a podcast.
Yes.
That's about on point.
Now, ain't that the oxymoron of the
Welcome to the
century?
podcast.
Let's put it this way, Tone. He doesn't want to deal with people physically.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. Yeah. So, we kind of struggled for like 2 hours to find good topics today. And interestingly enough, I actually owe both of the topics we now have lined up to Soviet, the guy who actually came up with these.
This is why we need fresh blood, because we're running out of it.
Here's your paycheck, Soviet.
Brian's
What
taking it.
paycheck? I never get.
So, topic 1. As many of you in the audience probably aware that we have several fan fiction writers here in this podcast of ours. Myself, Tom, Blank, to a lesser extent, Hades. No offense, buddy.
Ooh.
Who could I make it? Rest in peace.
Shots fired! Anyway.
Speaking of
Press
which,
F to pay
when's the
respects.
chapter coming out?
What?
F to pay respects.
When is the next chapter of Human Nature coming out?
Oh, look at that. It just got pushed back another month. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Genius! I approve!
Everyone watching this video, press F in the comments. Press F.
Pay respect!
Press F to
Oh.
pay
What's the
respect.
human
That's what
nature
they
forever
respect.
unupdated?
Anyway,
Oh my goodness.
so yes, we got a bunch of writers in here, and a lot of our stories include either original characters or characters who don't have much of a personality or development in the source material, so we kind of have to improvise that development for them. Soviet was curious about our processes for either creating characters or fleshing out pre-existing ones who didn't have much development before. And I figured that would be a good thing to talk about because I think we all have kind of different processes in it. So I'll just kind of go from left to right as far as like the order of people on screen goes. So that means it'll start with me, then Tom, and then blank. So for me, it kind of depends on the significance of the character and whether or not they crop up or were planned from the start. For example, in the Fiends trilogy, there were two original characters who were planned from the start. Albeit one of them I kind of only loosely figured out and filled in the details as I went, but these were Moonrise Drifter and Luminous Horizon. And even then, I kind of only just had the overarching concepts for them. Moonrise Drifter was half pony, half fiend for reasons I had not yet managed to piece together in my own damn head, and devoted her life to hunting and killing fiends, usually eating them after the fact. Whereas Luminous Horizon was the father of the fiends. But beyond that, I didn't really have a whole lot figured out when I started writing, and I just kind of pieced it together as seemed fitting and natural, which led to Luminous Horizon being Celestia's former lover, and Celestia and Horizon being Drifter's parents, and a bunch of other crazy crap like that, resulting in one of the most complicated and interwoven character relationship webs I think I've ever done in a story, and I'm still very proud of it, except for the fact that the series it's a part of is kind of underwhelming in retrospect. Anyways, but other examples, although a more recent example of original characters I've put together, or characters who I've tried to flesh out, would be the Little Consequences, some characters in there. Spoiler warning for the second two stories in the Little Flashes series. If you haven't looked at those yet, go ahead and stop listening now, unless, of course, you just don't care about spoilers, in which case, hey, welcome to the club. Anyway, so the three characters in question would be Pharynx, Squall Dreamer, and Wind Whisper. For Pharynx, he doesn't get a whole lot of development in the show in the one episode he's had on screen so far. I wish he'd show up more often. So much potential for a good character there. But you know, there's a baseline there. So for him, it was just a matter of trying to figure out how to make him more relatable. And a lot of that just amounted to him pretty much just expanding on what was established in the show, that he's very hard on Thorax, trying to help him develop a thicker skin by being incredibly hard on him and even beating him up from time to time, trying to make him be tough. And I justified that by establishing that in Changeling society, there is no room for liabilities. So Pharynx trying to toughen Thorax up by being so brutal on him was his way of trying to make sure that Thorax would survive by becoming self-sufficient instead of a liability. And in a lot of respects, that definitely worked. When it finally came time for those two to come to blows in the Crystal Empire and Little Consequences, Thorax came out on top, in large part because of, you know, how Pharynx had treated him before, how that had helped toughen him up. Albeit at the same time, he had a lot he was trying to fight to protect, which, of course, led to him getting a huge power boost from Wind Whisper, etc., etc. But that's not an original character. That's a character who already existed that I just kind of expanded upon. But Wind Whisper and Squall Dreamer are original characters, and I kind of wish I'd done more with Squall. Really, he kind of more served as just kind of a centerpiece for motivation for Thorax and Wind. But moving on to those two characters themselves, Squall Dreamer was originally not meant to have any real significance to the story beyond a single scene where he empathized with Luna to help her open up to Celestia about her guilt over what happened as Nightmare Moon. And the way I helped establish that sort of empathy is that Squall had a little sister, Wind Whisper, who had severe anxiety issues. You know, like constantly being incredibly hard on herself, blaming herself for even the smallest of things, emotionally fragile, I guess, something like that. So he had to hear, you know, his little sister losing herself to emotion a lot. So he was familiar with that kind of sound, and he heard it from Luna a lot more often than he would like, leading him to encourage her to open up to Celestia and seek help. But the thing is, that was all that Squall was meant to be originally. He wasn't meant to be anything more than that, and I didn't actually plan on giving Wind Whisper any screen time. Then, though, Thorax needed to find someone to replace, and that wound up being Squall Dreamer, because it just makes sense from a narrative perspective to have a greater impact on the audience if it's someone we know. And Squall was a named character who had shown an empathy with Luna. So I capitalized on that and made him be the one Thorax replaced. But that also necessitated that I give Wind Whisper screen time, because Wind Whisper had also wound up being mentioned in another location by her mother, who lives in a different town right now, because, Wind ran away with Squall. And so at that point, it just kind of steadily developed over time, like from just a throwaway name to one of the most pivotal and my personal favorite character in Little Consequences. And I think a lot of that just stems from the fact that she developed naturally. I didn't have a concept for her going in, aside from what Squall just kind of stated off to the side. After that, I more or less went out of my... Well, I didn't really go out of my way. She just developed on her own into this adorably energetic and hyper little filly who was very easily upset and blamed herself for a lot of things, with a very powerful love for berries, and was very sympathetic and open and friendly, leading to her developing a very close relationship with Thorax in a sort of big brother, little sister type of dynamic, which helped to inform Thorax's actions moving forward. And also played a pretty pivotal role in Thorax's relationship with Pharynx, because the family essentially grew significantly when Squall and Wind adopted Thorax into their family, more or less, at the end of Consequences. Pharynx doesn't need to look out for Thorax anymore. Thorax is the guardian now, essentially. He doesn't need a protector. And all of that entire plot arc, just kind of happened. I didn't plan any of it going in. Now, once it was established, I kind of added more detail with time, but you get the idea. So, the TLDR on all of that is my process for creating characters is either just an overarching concept that I just build from naturally as I go, or they just kind of happen. And when they just kind of happen seems to be when they're at their best. Because I'm not overthinking it at that point, I'm just letting it happen. And the stories that write themselves always seem to be the best. At least from my point of view. So that's my take. Any input?
You really ran away with that one.
Yes, yes, I did. Hey, I've got a lot to say about those characters.
I was late there.
Actually,
It was only 10 minutes.
yeah, about 10 minutes.
Right.
Well done.
But any thoughts or input on that before we move on to anyone else?
Not really. I just have no
Well,
idea what I'm
I'll
going to
do
say when it's my turn. So.
One at a time, please. One at a time.
Wow.
One at a time, children.
Soviet, anything to say? Anything to add?
I do find it interesting the way you go about it, because here's the thing. I have trouble writing. I don't know what it is. I can think of stories. I can think of characters, their motivations, why they act the way they do, but I cannot translate what, happens in my mind for them onto the screen of a computer or onto paper. It just does not happen. I don't know why that happens, but yeah, I don't know. My process is different, or at least I think it's different than most. Hence why I pitched the idea for the topic.
Paladin, anything to add? Any thoughts?
I have no thoughts on that whatsoever. That was good, so I have nothing to
All right.
ask.
All right. Darkness, anything from you?
Well, all I can say is that the way you think of all these characters, I say you do it very well, even if it does just come naturally. I think you're in the right direction with them, my opinion.
Tux?
Nah, it's right.
I don't.
With a silence, and then it's all right.
I don't really know what I was.
Amazing.
I don't really know what I was expecting from the local meme lord. All right, so we still have two other writers and their processes to go through. So Tom, you're up next. What do you got?
I haven't got a fucking clue because I'm way too tired for this shit.
Really?
No. I mean, like, what, like, now it's actually your turn to, like, actually, like, talk about your process, if you have one, for fleshing out characters or making them.
Because you're special.
Well, also, what
That's
the hell?
what I meant. No idea where to begin with this.
Oh.
You're gonna give me my
Also, what the hell is that buzzing sound?
That's what I'm wondering.
No idea. I can hear it.
It's really
it come off my
irritating
end?
my left ear.
It's coming from Tux.
Is it? Oh, crap.
Yep.
This is small boy.
Damn it, sucks.
I know you're the meme lord, but this is not the time nor the place.
God,
Yeah,
needs-
yeah, Tex, you need to tone it down.
Oh, that's bad.
Paladin.
Boo. Now, Paladin, before your ass gets clapped.
No, Tux. Let me pass judgment here. Paladin. Paladin, I would like to formally reveal to you that you fail at life as a whole.
You've been voted off the island. I'm sorry.
You have disappointed your entire lineage, disgraced the human race, and offended the ponies you so love. I award you no points.
You haven't done worse.
Excuse me, I'm not done yet. I award you no points, and may Gob have mercy on your toe.
My what?
You and your fucking gob.
Who the heck is Bob?
Oh, let me tell you a story.
I think I'll go.
Go on.
Gob!
Save it for improv.
Oh, we just switched to improv for a minute while I talk about this.
Oh,
He can do this. 'cause he's
No,
not
let's get to the
old.
stay on topic, and then we talk about it at the end, like you planned.
Ooh.
This will only take a minute.
Tone shift has gone
He
deviant.
says that. He says that.
There are no rules.
Tone shift has gone deviant. Run.
Anyways. Gob is a small green cactus-like creature with brown hair, tiny nubs for arms, and teddy bear legs.
How does a cactus have hair?
Shut up.
Oh, I remember now. I know what you're talking about.
He demands your praise and worship in the form of cuddles and hugs. If you do not
Screw
praise him
him.
with cuddles and hugs, he will break your big toe. Now
My
that
big
I
toe's
have
already broken.
efficiently and practically described everything there is to know about Gob, we can move on back to the topic. Blank.
Yep.
What's your
Oh,
process?
we're skipping Tom? Okay.
Tom just didn't have anything, he said.
No, I didn't say that. I just said, oh god, I have to think.
Oh,
Fucking hell,
Tom
I'm
went
doing
blank.
this shit.
Wait, do you want to go after
Tom
blank
went
so you can think about it?
Yeah.
Okay, blank, you're up.
Oh
Don't
boy.
drink,
Well,
kids. Save that for improv.
well, for making characters, I don't know. It's honestly nowadays I just kind of have a giant bucket full of characters that I just kind of pick from every time I need one now because I have so many for other stories that I'm never going to get to. Thank goodness. The concept form is as shamefully as it is. Just what does the story need, and then I just start developing it from there. Normally, like in a backwards direction. Like what do they do to get to the point that they're at right now? But oh geez, well, I started this talking like I didn't have any original characters, like really, but then I just remembered. I guess Hunter is technically one, isn't he?
Yeah, because you invented him. Also,
Yeah.
the voice in his head, Thorn. And
Thorn.
and you've also provided fleshing out and character development for otherwise blank slates in the form of Noteworthy, Lyra, and all them.
Yeah, I guess I did.
Yeah.
To be honest, Thorn and the whole voice in Hunter's head thing kind of just happened. I didn't plan for it, and it was just kind of here they are and just roll with it for me.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's created one of the
and-
most interesting mysteries of human nature, and even though I'm your pre-reader, I don't know where the hell it's going.
yeah. Don't worry, I got a plan.
Again, I was gonna bring up. Don't you have like several original characters in their very own sons in the form of the I wouldn't exactly call them guards,
Oh,
but the
right.
knights for Nightmare Moon.
And also
yeah,
the
Archer and
Griffins.
Snake Eyes.
Yeah, and also
Also
the
the Griffins.
and
Shooting Galahad.
and Evening Twinkle.
Evening
Right.
Twinkle is fun. Yeah, she. I don't know. I was just the whole thing for Evening Twinkle is because I figured there's like a vacuum being made with Twiggles not being Celestia's favorite anymore after the whole events of I don't know whatever happened. So
Yeah.
I needed a spot for Celestia's personal student, and Evening kind of took the plate. And as I kept going, I'm just trying to put little hints like, yeah, she's kind of like Twilight in some respects, but I'm also trying to make it deviant towards other things. Like, obviously, doesn't have the same respect for books after that last chapter, but
Yeah, she's a bit more practical, a bit more blunt, maybe, a bit more flighty.
The
Mhm.
fact that it seems you're making Twilight an antagonist in that story means it's heresy, and it must be burnt.
You're talking about human nature, Tom. He's talking about their
Yeah, that
very own
one.
sons right now.
Honestly, I don't know what the fuck he's doing with his stories. I just know they're heretical.
Fair enough.
Not soon enough.
Not how that
Well,
works.
hey, Twilight's the leading character in the Very Own Sons.
Good, good.
I'd, appreciate that one.
All right, that one gets a pass.
All right.
I'm not. How is Twilight the antagonist in Human Nature? Educate the uneducated.
Because First Contact is a bitch,
Yeah.
and
No,
in the first two acts,
less villainous, more misunderstanding.
Pretty much.
Yes,
Yeah.
they put a Zakora on Hunter.
Except a lot harder.
yeah, pretty much.
Crank up the speciesism.
And it goes for like months instead of a day.
Yeah.
Crank
Well,
up the
to be
race.
fair, Zakora technically was going on for much longer than one day. It's just Twilight only saw her for one day, and then they fixed it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, with Sakura, she just walked into town and then left and was never bothered while she was there. Everything was closed and everyone was hiding. With Hunter, he came in, and next thing you know, he's being blasted by a party cannon and shoved against the frickin' ground by a prismatic missile named Rainbow Dash.
One hell of a welcome,
I
mat,
love,
don't you say?
I love how this topic's gone to racism now, and I just watched a Doctor Who episode that was based around Rosa Parks. Oh boy. That was a weird episode today.
Yeah.
So I guess you just don't really have much of a process. You just kind of wing it.
In a manner of speaking, yeah. I've got, like I said, half the characters that you'll see as like minor characters are like actually major characters in those stories that I just don't think I'm ever going to get to. So I'm just trying to put them in their spotlight.
Kind of reminds me of how I've recycled the name Topaz Rune more than a few times. I mean, like, Topaz appeared just as a name in Bug and the Herd, as a fictional character that the main character voice acted. And then you had Topaz showing up as one of the cast in the hotel. And if ever I actually get around to writing it, Topaz would be the main protagonist of a story called The Lamp of Harmony or something along those lines, which I'll actually explain a little later. But for now, you gotta...
Fuck. Brian, heads up. Remember that Darkness Primal guy from a while back who sent us all those stupid ideas?
Oh,
He
God.
just hopped into the Living Legacy server.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So prepare for rants. and
Run!
onslaughts.
Anyways, so, well, let's get back on topic here. So, Tom, do you have much of a process, or is it just kind of wing it?
Well, I can start talking about how shit went. I had a thought about it. Like, at the beginning of my writing career on this fabulous website that is fanfiction.net, I did initially the Brian tactic of just writing and see whatever happened and winging it. That changed pretty early on with change as I started planning pretty much every chapter to a T with some room for changing things down the line. In terms of characterization, Well, if I were to start a change, initially I was mostly working with canon characters anyway, and mostly within their characterizations. The only difference would be Chrysalis, who I kind of wanted to keep much the same in that she's a slight mad, power-hungry bitch at times, but the fact that Twilight existed meant that she had developed a softer side, as well as just stuff in her backstory I'm not going to say here. Go read it.
Yeah.
The only other character I really had to invent of any importance in the original first act of Change was Serpens, who, in my original 12-chapter story concept, was kind of his villainous role was going to be filled by Prince Blueblood. That got written out, and he's barely even mentioned at all. So instead, I made how can I make this a bit more interesting compared to some of these other stories I've seen around with Changeling Twilight or Changelings in general, and prejudice against them. Oh, I know. Plot twist. We have a Changeling be the one behind it all.
Yeah.
So initially, he was just going to kind of be a rogue Changeling doing his own thing. Then that kind of spiraled out of control, which had the idea of Crudelis, and obviously Vespula was his queen, if I recall. It's been a while, and all of that whole storyline that then cascaded into a second and third act of Change, which I've already told the story many times about how that was originally 12 and ended up
Over
a good
60
odd. Yeah, 64 if I remember. Just a little over my original estimate, a little bit.
Oof.
Then the only other original character of any importance that kind of came up out in Act 1 of Change was Cardus. Or Cardus, as I pronounced it for so freaking long until Brian changed that with his readings.
Cardus.
Cardus,
I
yes.
mean, Cardus just kind of sounds stupid because it's like, hey, that car's dropping a deuce.
You're a fucking deuce.
Thank you for
But yeah.
noticing. I'll be here all
Taking
year.
a deuce on Tom.
Initially, he was just like the one-off escort guard captain character who would get Twilight from A to B, and later kind of became a friend who would do a fake-out self-sacrificing thing, though did have the nerves in his spinal column damaged irreparably. So, I did screw that guy's spine up.
Yes, you did.
So yeah, that's how that character kind of changed. In Act 2, I obviously introduced Queen Draco, who...
Oh.
I heard the groan from Brian there.
That wasn't for me.
Oh,
I
you
was-
might have. Who did the groan?
Guilty.
But yeah, Draco, who was... Well, how she ended up was not originally planned. Originally, Draco was just, well, in a hive full of changelings who were very much anti-equestrian, headed by the villain of the piece. I wanted another changeling queen who was somewhat sympathetic, and so had a connection to Chrysalis, and so knew how to find the hive as well to give her the freaking invitation in the first place. So that was Draco's original just whole shtick. Then I added obviously a backstory between her and Chrysalis, a bit more fleshed out with a whole flashback chapter of them being young and adorable.
Yep.
But pretty much her entire arc in that story, at this point I was in the aside from that flashback chapter, which I just added because I needed a flashback chapter, her story in the rest of that, or in the rest of the original Change, was pretty much penned out from Act 2 and 3 when I started planning as vigorously as I do. Namely how, obviously, she would mostly be the liaison at the council and would come to their aid after Crudelis fucked everything up and murdered Chrysalis. Spoilers!
We already dropped
yeah.
a spoiler warning earlier. People should be fine.
Double spoilers. But yeah, so that's where her part kind of ended. It was significant in Act 2 and 3, though it was more in a supporting role and obviously befriended Twilight throughout their trials and tribulations and the founding of the Equestrian Hive.
Yep.
And then when I got to planning Queen of the Hive, well, initially I knew I wanted Draco to be the one to inadvertently start the whole thing off, because she was someone Twilight cared about, and I already had long established her hive to be beyond the Crystal North, which was where the regalia was buried anyway. So
I like how you
sense.
call it the bitch regalia.
But yeah, Immortalis' regalia was buried up in the north, around the hive, so it just made sense for Draco to be able to find it and be the first one to get completely mindfucked by it. And from there, when I just planned out the rest of it, it's like, alright, I want, obviously, Immortalis to get free at some point. I have a quota of named characters to kill, to be the utter bastard. And once again, Draco seemed the most logical choice, because the other character I killed in that story, Scorpion, he was only in Act 1 and was a relatively minor addition, all things considered. He was being replaced by Facade.
Yep.
So I needed something a little bit more hard-hitting. Maybe not to the level of Draco, but more to the level of Longshot in the original. There's a lot of people really liked him. And yeah, I killed Draco, and that caused some people to rage quit.
Yep.
Yep. That was the thing that happened. Other original characters I made in Queen of the Hive, obviously I could just go on about Immortalis and Crudelis, but they were just bitch 1 and bitch 2.
Pretty much.
At least one had wanted to help the race as a whole. The other just had a god complex. But yeah, Facade. The whole concept behind Facade's creation in Queen of the Hive was the fact that Avia needed to exist later on.
So Twilight needed a hubby.
Yeah. Originally, I was just going to have him pop up in between Queen of the Hive and Avia, but then I decided against that because I kind of wanted to get some characterization for him if there's going to be a character going on.
Yeah.
So I decided to, make him part of Draco's Hive and someone who actually managed to get away from the whole mind-corrupting bullshit.
Yep.
Gotta be one of the most fanciest names ever heard. Facade.
Well,
It's kind of ironic because Facade usually implies
Yeah.
an illusion, but he can't shapeshift worth a damn.
nope.
Can we get a rip for the homie?
He tried to shapeshift into a Pegasus once, and he just kind of came out looking like a mismatched puzzle set.
God.
That is one of my favorite parts.
And he had to concentrate for several seconds to do it.
Yeah, that's my favorite part. Like he's when I was coming up with the concept of alright, I don't want to have this changeling pop up between Queen of the Hive and Avia, because I know by this point I already knew that Avia and the New Kingdom were going to be a thing, and they're kind of their basic premises, even though I've only later on started to more in depth go into that. So I was like, alright, he needs to be somewhat comparable to Twilight, so slight inquisitive nature, okay, but not to the same bookish level. He was a guard for Draco, so he's a good fighter. However, I wanted, obviously, a flaw for him as well, so he's not like whatever the male version of Mary Sue is.
Gary Stu.
Gary Stu, that was it. So I was thinking of what flaw I could come up with. I'd already since decided on the name Facade for him, because changelings.
And then
Then I was like, what if a changeling couldn't change?
just make a bit of irony there.
Yeah. So that's what I did. I could that, which I do not regret it because it made some rather amusing scenes with certain children with no restraint on their interrogation techniques.
And Twilight found it absolutely endearing. It is probably a big part of why those two got together in the first place. Aside from Discord's subtle nudges.
You completely cut out there. What do you say?
I said it was an endearing factor, which would probably played a big part of why he and Twilight got together in the first place.
Aside from Discord's subtle knowledge nudging.
Subtle nudges. Put a giant bed in the middle of the library with rose petals, winking pictures of Twilight and Facade, and a saxophone.
You keep cutting out. I'm gonna
The king of
1 second.
subtlety.
1 second.
I mean, that won't be a problem on my end because cutting
I
out
can
won't,
hear.
cutting out won't be a problem in the actual video, at least not for me, because my voice is going directly into the video. It's not going through internet shit, but whatever. So,
Most of the time, the internet here is pretty good, but sometimes there's some weird moments. It's just literally turning off and on the game seats out. All I heard in your last sentence before I did that was saxophone. So
yeah. You know. Anyway,
but yeah, like
careless whispers.
and then in
beat me to it.
So just to kind of summarize a TLDR, your process seems to be come up with a basic process before you actually write them down and add more as you go.
Yeah, like sometimes I I tend to like write out like on a very extensive notepad like the entire plot line and the characters need to do. Sometimes that changes. I'll get to that in a minute if I can continue on.
Well, we're mostly just talking about the character creation side of things here, so
that's what I'm talking about. Anyway, specifically how some characters developed.
Right.
Man, both you guys had like huge essays.
I was then going to talk about Misty Gust in a second, as to end off.
Yeah, Misty Gust is a good
and how
one.
that changed.
Because, I mean, most recent chapter, Soaring on Little Wings, broke her little heart, so...
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a minute after just finishing up with Facade, because Facade, obviously, I also had to figure out how to introduce him to Twilight and how I wanted that to go. I also just basically made that go pretty much throughout the entire story. I didn't have them meet until right at the very end, in a very adorable encounter between the two, because he's been crushing on her for fucking ever.
She is so admirable. Oh, looks like the new guy's got a crush on the princess. I do.
Queen.
Queen.
Must love the queen. The queen.
It's like, wow, you're more beautiful in person. What? Nothing? What?
Whenever I get back to my rating, that's going to be a fun scene to do.
Yeah.
That's going to be well off. That's literally like end of like the final confrontation.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I did the math. There's only like a little over 20 or so chapters left in it as far as the reading goes. So, I mean, I'm on the 40s.
Yeah, but she just made Immortalis taste the rainbow. She wakes up and then she meets this rather awkward changeling who's crushing very hard. and then Discord tells him to get laid.
Yeah, it just was like, you need to go find Facade because you seriously need to get laid.
And that, Avia, is how I met your mother.
No.
Oh,
That was such a great show, though.
that was nice. That was good.
Oh my goodness.
Brilliantly said!
Awesome.
Tux, your buzzing is back.
Wait, what?
Your buzzing is back.
I didn't hear it.
I heard
Yeah.
it. I heard it for a second.
I just hope Immortalis suffers the worst fate, a fate
She-
worse than death. Death is
I mean,
too simple for her.
She's just dead. She's very dead. She wasn't even meant to be alive.
She committed neck rope.
Oh,
What?
Fucking!
I mean, Immortalis died, but survived by having her mind the hive mind and wanted to use Twilight's eventually to be born offspring, like Avia, as her own vessel. So yeah, she got the Elements Harmony just destroyed her. Fucker.
Anyway, so, Misty Gust.
Yes.
Before you do that, just as a quick heads up for the audience, if this doesn't sound familiar, that's because Misty Gust is a character from the Patreon exclusive reading, Soaring on Little Wings. That reading is not on YouTube yet, and it won't be up on YouTube until the reading is completely done, which is still quite a ways off. I'm only on chapter 35, and there's like 40 or so. And I only do one chapter of it a week, and that's assuming everything goes well. So it's still a ways out. So spoiler warning for that, just in case you aren't a patron. Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Side of
To the
DLC.
allotted time zone.
But yeah, Misty Gust. Well, Soaring on Little Wings, a story of a child dying because of neglectful parents, human, and coming back as a little Pegasus who was then adopted by Bo Hothoof and Windy Whistles.
Who, interestingly
So-
enough, you were initially called Bo Hothoof, Mo Hothoof.
Fuck you, Tone. Anyway, yeah, so obviously Little Wing was just kind of the whole fish out of water. She hadn't had much life to begin with, even though she'd lived for 13 years before dying because her parents were terrible, terrible people. So even though she had the, like, older intelligence, she was very, very naive, so she might as well have been a newborn. So that's kind of the dynamic I was going for there with her growing up for a second time. as well as dealing with ongoing PTSD through most of her life.
Yeah.
I mean, that would happen if you die from neglect, then meet a scary, slightly crazy Alarcon.
Yeah. And then are reborn into a completely alien body. That must have wreaked havoc on her
In a
psyche.
cardboard box on Cloud.
Oh,
Yeah.
Did it say give to a good home on the side?
No,
probably
she just
not.
she just put it in the right place at the right time because she knew that a certain couple would be walking by soon and that Emma would be fucking traumatized and start bawling her eyes out. So, yeah. The numbers are slightly a bitch, but a well-intentioned one most of the time. But yeah, onto Misty Gust. She was initially conceived mostly, where things went with her, that initially was not meant to happen at all. I planned most of the story out, chapter by chapter, as I always do. However, I didn't even, thinking back, I didn't even do that originally. I didn't do it to the same extent as I do most of my stories. I kind of wanted to see if I could have Soaring on Little Wings evolve in whatever direction seemed appropriate at the time. I was kind of experimenting with that a bit because it was my first full-on slice of life. Later on, I fully planned it out though. But initially, Misty Gust was not intended to be anything more than a friend to Lil Wing. I conceived her as someone that was born, quote unquote, the same year as her, same age, give or take a month, or not even a month, like a week. But yeah, someone who she could connect with growing up, form a friendship with, and had to rely on. Later on down the line, though, as they did grow up and they had their friendship evolving, I came to realize more and more just how close they were becoming, very quickly, into their teenage years. So it ended up evolving into something of a more than friends romance between them, Lyra Bonbon style.
Yeah.
Best friends, everyone.
Best
Yeah.
friends.
So yeah, that completely derailed from my original intent for them. Originally, I was going to have Little Wing be completely straight, but that changed, obviously. Which obviously led to them eventually getting a house together and getting married and getting a foal that was biologically Little Wings, but not biologically Misty's, because obviously they had to get a donor.
Yeah.
Biology, everyone. You learn something.
I hate that class.
I hate
But
this
yeah.
channel.
That's my lowest grade. Dang it.
No, you don't hate this channel. You wouldn't have pledged $10.
Not your channel. Not this channel.
It was a
I'm just
reference.
quoting the line.
But of course, the fact that they were married very shortly before Little Wing was, once again, spoiler alert, massive spoiler, the biggest spoiler of the entire fucking story, go in 3, 2, 1, Little Wing was killed.
Yep.
By a griffin with an arrow, saving Rainbow Dash. Our
Murder
party.
by the 9 Divines. Murder.
Yeah, when Little Wing took an arrow inadvertently for Rainbow Dash and got skewered through and bled out. When obviously she made that deal with Penumbra to lose her memories but be restored to life. It created a whole interesting dynamic with Misty trying to help her through that, trying to allow her to remember, because obviously Lil Wing had no idea who Misty Gust even was, aside from the fact they were apparently married. Because obviously no one would ever steal that plot point from me.
Hey, interestingly enough, I wasn't thinking at all about Soaring on Little Wings when I made Twilight and Amnesiac, alright?
Coincidence? I think not.
There might have been some subconscious inspiration there, but it wasn't consciously planned, so...
Well, the character directions post that go very different directions. But yeah, so it created an interesting dynamic there of Misty struggling with the whole thing, but then trying to help her back, which was soon after followed by Twilight doing some risky shit to get Little Wing's memories back and subsequently finding out of her slightly alien origins and how that affected them. And obviously just going on to the end of the story and the rest of their lives together, which they spent until their old age, where they eventually did pass on for a final time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You've got... Alright.
So, basically, my characters are mostly planned, though unexpected shit can happen if I oh, that's a good idea. Let's do that.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of how the Twilight Rainbow Dash relationship... What the fuck is that noise?
Whoa! Hold on. Is it coming from my mic?
I have no idea.
What was the noise?
It was a
God damn it. Hold on.
Not of static issues today.
Yeah. Very distorted,
God.
staticky kind of sound.
Nah, he's just eating chips, man.
That's not what chips sound like.
He's eating Doritos.
That's not what Doritos sound like. I
It's
know.
the
I eat
bag.
Doritos on occasion.
It's
Anyways.
the back. You fat motherfucker.
Well, yeah, the buzzing is coming from Soviet, so,
Let me mute my mic. Give me a second. I think I know what it is.
alright. Anyways, so, but you talking about Mystic Gus and how that relationship just kind of sprang up kind of reminds me a lot of what happened with Twilight and Rainbow Dash in Little Choices and Consequences. I was never originally planning for those two to wind up being a romantic couple in that series. It kind of wound up happening, though, over time, naturally. Like, I guess,
They're
like,
originally going to be sisters, if I recall.
yeah, they're originally going to be, kind of like sisters, really close sisters. But then, so in Little Choices, they shared a lot of physical affection that I'm not necessarily sure sisters would typically have. I don't know. I don't have sisters. But it just struck me as very, more intimate than you might expect in a lot of ways.
Don't you love that inadvertent unbiological incest?
Well, at any rate, I mean, Twilight wasn't adopted by Celestia, so it was sister-like relationship, but ultimately friends, no matter how you slice it. Anyway, but as it stands, the seeds for them actually becoming a couple wound up starting pretty early on in Choices, when Rainbow and Twilight were trying to figure out where Starlight lived. And it was an all-nighter study session in the Canterlot archives, where Rainbow was actually managing to not whinge and complain about it because she was doing it with Twilight, her oldest friend, which was enough to surprise Twilight, like, wait, you mean you like studying with me? Well, I mean, it's more that even I like quiet time sometimes, and I don't know, there's just something nice about having quiet time with you. And it just kind of grew from there. And also led to one of the most heartbreaking moments in the entire series. When Rainbow Dash finally fessed up and admitted how she felt in Hollow Shades, that was just... I was tearing up when I wrote that. Anyway, so... Okay, wow, that's topic 1 done. That lasted a while. Good 48 minutes and 17 seconds.
As a final note, when it comes to character creation and more character interaction, the story I'm working on now was quite a complicated one to think through. I was there for a good couple of hours trying to plan that out.
Cool.
A Sparkle in the Darkness, out now. Go read it.
Yeah.
Hashtag plugs.
Nice.
Anyway.
Wait, what's our next topic after that?
Soviet.
For fuck's sake.
Anyways. So...
Soviet. Suka blit.
Yeah, well, the next topic is also courtesy of Soviet. Our favorite non-My Little Pony characters.
The Doctor.
Oh yes.
The problem, the thing is we have 11 minutes left.
Oh crap, my bad.
Unless you just want an extension.
Wait, villains or heroes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
All of
just characters. So on that grounds, I think we shouldn't spend too much time on it. So we'll try to make this like a rapid fire round. We might go a little over an hour today. So let's. There's the buzzing again.
Yeah, and also Darkness Primal is up to his old tricks in the other chats. I can see him at work.
Yeah, I've noticed. I've set myself to do not disturb while we're recording this, though, so we'll deal with that after we're done here. Anyways, so for me, there are too many characters that I really like for me to really say if I have a favorite across the board. But if I have to think of one that I really like right now that stands out, it would have to be... What is that noise?
So, can you just keep yourself muted for a while? Because there's a lot of sounds.
My thing isn't popping up. I don't think it's coming from me this...
It was. It
headphones.
very was.
Anyways,
It definitely was.
but a character that stands out to me as far as like characters I really like right now would have to be Alphino Lavelier from Final Fantasy XIV. And the reason I like him in short terms is mostly because of his character arc. From when he was introduced to where he is now, he's had quite the character arc and a lot of development. He started off very, very full of himself, very arrogant, very self-assured, and very haughty and pompous, kind of condescending in a lot of ways. Now, of course, he was also very intelligent for his age, a child prodigy genius and a powerful mage to boot. A tactician and diplomat, but again, haughty, arrogant, full of himself, kind of condescending. But over the course of the game, notably the Heavensward and Stormblood expansions, a lot of things happened that made him develop humility. He became a lot more humble, a lot more compassionate, a lot more kind and understanding. He's still a genius. He's still a tactician. He's still a pretty proficient mage in combat situations, but he's not nearly as haughty or arrogant or full of himself. He's been humbled, and the journey he took through that humbling and the efforts he went to really make up for a lot of the mistakes he made in his own arrogance and, I guess, self-assurance, his overambition. The journey he went to try and make up for his mistakes from that overambition was a thing to behold, and moments of levity with him are often a joy to behold. He's a great tactician and a powerful mage, but he has some hilarious shit too. He cannot swim. For some reason, in the words of his twin sister, the boy just isn't very buoyant. Anyways, so I don't want to go on about that for too long. We've got 8 minutes. So Soviet, you next. Try to keep it brief.
Favorite character going to be a villain or on her franchise, more of because of her ambitions, not because of her actual portrayal. One of my favorite characters of all time would be Apollyon.
There we go.
Through her past of watching her village burn, Highwind, and then going into a night, she kind of develops a weird mentality of, well, it seems to be we are always at, so I'll create a world where there is nothing but.
You keep cutting out from me.
Yeah.
I had to swap to a different pair of headphones. It's the only way to get the buzzing to stop.
Well. All right. Is that all you have to say on that character?
You said keep it brief.
All right. Paladin?
Thank you.
Okay.
He's saying in the roll call he had to leave.
Paging Mr. Paladin.
Oh.
Paging Mr. Paladin.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, Darkness, what about you?
Well, I've been thinking about it. The character that comes to mind has to be Thrash the Stampede from Trigun. One of my favorite anime, well, probably ever watched. The reason I like him because he has this fearsome name about him in title, and everyone thinks he's the most dangerous person in the whole entire world. But it turns out he's actually not. He's more of a pacifist, and he hates the sight of blood. And he's never killed anyone in his life. Well,
Intentionally.
maybe intentionally anyway. So despite him being the most feared person, he has the hugest bounty on his head, which many people want to claim that bounty, dead or alive. And somehow he finds the various ways to disarm his killers and also make sure nobody gets harmed. Doing so, they do get injured and there is a lot of collateral damage, but no one is killed most of the time, remarkably.
Huh.
So, yeah, it's definitely one of the most craziest ones, and he's definitely one of my favorite characters ever.
Nice. Tom, you're next.
In just terms of characters I really like, well, as I said, like the one that immediately comes to mind would literally be the Doctor from Doctor Who.
Yeah.
In most incarnations, not keen on the sixth, mostly because of the writing. Nothing really to do with the actor. The actor was quite adamant about that. But
Okay.
I don't even know what to say because I've got freaking 50. I need to go through freaking 50 years of history to get the entire character down. But I suppose it's just I don't even know, to be honest. Then it'd be too long to go through. That we only have 6 minutes, if that.
Yeah, no, just under 5 minutes.
Yep.
Do not have enough time to go. Soviet.
God fucking damn it.
Okay.
Man, y'all gotta turn your headphone
Okay.
sensitivity down. That barely phased me.
All right. So, Tux, you're next. What do you got?
I just have to say one of my favorite characters of all time has to be from the Black Ops series, just specifically Black Ops Zombie series, and that'll be Nikolai Belinsky. The man's
Of course.
story. Wait, what?
Of course, carry on.
Hey, that dude's
I
amazing.
like the character. I know.
Dude's amazing. Anyway, the way I don't know, he's an all-in-one character. He's awesome. He knows he has a little bit of humor. It's he gets crap done. He's very serious at times and has some comic relief during. Ow.
Don't hurt yourself.
Anyway, yeah, he's just an all-in-one character. He fits perfect for
I'd say he's one of my
the
most
series.
favorite characters.
The 2.0 version, not the 1.0 version.
Yeah.
Okay, and blank.
All right, so I really tried to narrow it down the best I can. I got like 3 tied for place, so I'm gonna make it extra brief. I guess the highest 2 on the top would just be like Spider-Man and Venom, just because like that's just always what I've really been into since a child, and the Venom movie came out recently, and by far that was the greatest 7 out of 10 movie I ever saw. Another one, probably less known by a lot of people. There's this character in a book series I read called X Heroes called St. George. He's the whole premise of the book is just superheroes in the zombie apocalypse, and this guy is like pretty much imagine Superman, but not Superman at the same time. He's got impenetrable skin, like breathes fire, and like he jumps real good. But he's got a weird character growth, being like the only guy who pretty much can't turn into a zombie because his skin can't break and he can't get the infection because of it. And him with the other characters and the interactions through that. I don't know. I'm really trying to make it brief so I don't go over these next 2 minutes.
I mean, I think.
I don't know. I just like him.
Yeah. Okay.
And the part at the end where he learns how to fly finally is pretty badass.
Indeed. So, we have got 2 minutes left. Before we started recording this episode, Blank was showing us pictures from the Power Ponies comics.
I got like 5 more since like we started.
You want to just talk about some of that for like just a minute? Some of the things that are confusing
Oh my goodness, I
making
hate
you-
it so much. Like I already talked to you guys about
real
the person
quick, has
with
it
the high
stopped?
heels.
The buzzing
No,
for the
it
moment.
hasn't yet.
The buzzing has stopped for the moment.
Okay, good.
That's what you're
I
talking
can
about.
stay unmuted.
So aside from like the person who like has high heels for throwing stars, I kept looking at it. She has a car, right, in the shape of a tennis shoe, like a normal human tennis shoe too, which just leads to so many more questions. What else do I
I'm
got?
seeing some problems here.
Yeah, and there's so many like punchable faces, and hold up, I gotta like just show some of these to you because I really can't describe them right now. Where's the chat room? First off, this and
no.
Oh boy.
this little guy, this little green guy has the most
What the
punchable
fiddly
face I've ever
fuck?
seen.
Isn't that the
Oh, look,
Spike
it's
character?
Discount Robin.
Friendship.
Yeah, isn't that the
Yeah.
character Thumb Drum or something? Isn't it that Spike was?
Yeah,
Yeah.
hold up, let me see. I had like a lot. There's a lot of weird stuff in
That
this. I can't-
tail does not look like a tail.
No, it does not.
Oh, there's also Cheerly in the cop uniform, which I very much approve.
That ought to be some fun role play.
Oh, Keisha.
The emo horse, that's still the epitome of every single OC I've seen on Finfic, making people sad with his powers.
Yes.
And
A guy who just points at you and you become sad as balls.
pretty much.
And
that's
If someone's already
Also-
distracted-
You see, if you're gonna go through the process of creating a sad character, at least give him a reason to be sad.
Also, one thing about the thumb drum picture, can we appreciate how his tail looks like he's just fine?
That's what I thought it was. That's what I thought it was at first. Anyways, on that very immature note, it is time for us to end this episode of Jibber Jabber. Thank you all very much for tuning in. We hope to see you next week. Thanks for tuning in, people, and as always, keep listening. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Everybody.
Adios.